Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Okay, I would like to welcome everyone to the July 30, 2021 Niskuna Town Complete Streets Committee. I am sitting in the historic Hotel Ordway in Ordway, Colorado, home to many bikers that bike across the United States and stop here and can get a room for $25. Are our new members, Andrew and Catherine, with us or not yet?
Yeah, I don't see them.
Okay. Well, they'll be welcome if they tune in. Why don't I start with the roll call? Tess Healy, I see that Tess is here. Paulina,
Here.
I see in the Schaefer room. Hello, Paulina. I'm here. Jim Levy. Hello, Jim. How are you? Elise, how are you? Nice to see you. And Laura is here. Hello, Laura. And Jean Fody and the planning office staff is here. I should say Laura Robertson, our town planner. I know Carla has a lot going on. I don't see her, but perhaps she'll join us. Carla Dougal. And I don't know if you've heard, Laura, from David Hogan Camp or Dart Strayer. Are they out on the screen?
Yeah,
somewhere?
so Dart was planning on coming today, but something came up and he was not able. And David is would like to step aside if we can fill his spot. So we just appointed 2 more people, which would have made us full. With David, if he steps down, then we'll have 1 more vacant spot. But he's flexing right now, but not able to come.
Okay. Well, it was. I sent the clip to everyone on the committee about David's work with the land bank and homes that are being torn down in the city of Schenectady, and lots either cleared or new buildings coming along. So he's on Metroplex, but also working as the head of the land bank and getting homes done. So I thought it was a nice clip, went to everyone, and that nice to see someone on our board getting some nice recognition. Hello, Mr. Mastrani. Nice to see you today as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Nice to see everyone.
Okay. The minutes were distributed. I hope the minutes from our June 25 meeting. Does anyone have any correction or addition they would like to make to those minutes?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I mean, they just came out this morning, so if you guys would rather just have them in your packet and we could take action on them next month, it's up to you guys.
Well, I did send them out about 2 weeks ago, so we can wait till the next meeting unless, I'm happy to do either one. The folks here, have people had a chance to read them, or would they prefer to wait to our August meeting?
I haven't had a chance to go through them.
Okay. Well, we will hold these until our August meeting and move on to old business. And the first item we have is Wyoming Avenue memo. And at our last meeting in June, we recommended 6 things with respect to Wyoming and Baker. One was to install a stop sign on Wyoming at Baker Avenue, replacing the yield. Second one was to install a stop sign on Grenoside in Baker, replacing the yield. Item 3 was remove the brush and tree limbs at the corner of Wyoming and Baker to make sure that the new stop sign and even the current yield sign are visible to motorists. We discussed possibly narrowing or necking down the intersection at Wyoming and Baker. So we have reviewed the asphalt on Wyoming and Baker, remove any excess pavement on curves, if any, to shorten the area that pedestrians are crossing. And also on the brush and limbs, it's not only on Wyoming, but brush and limbs on Baker, so that pedestrians and other people coming on Baker can see cars on Wyoming. Then number 5, recommend the town board do a traffic study at Baker and Lexington to evaluate whether a four-way stop intersection is warranted. Motorists on Baker have to stop at the intersection with Lexington, but not folks on Lexington. And it's 2 lanes of traffic, and the residents that live there often see that people on Keys can take a left and be heading the wrong way in traffic on a one-way road. So that's worrisome. Then we have leave the electronic speed limit sign on Wyoming Avenue in order to do a traffic comparison between before and after the stop sign installation. So, I mean, we did vote on those at our last meeting, but if there's any additional discussion on this, we certainly can entertain that at this time. And Mr. Mastriani, I'd invite you to offer a comment if you have any thoughts on the items that we recommended to the town board and to Police and Public Safety Committee.
Well, obviously they're all good. I wasn't able to make the meeting last month. So when you said you voted on it, how did that go?
I believe it was a unanimous vote, but I'd have to review the YouTube meeting once again.
Okay,
so-
I could take a look also. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all good. We had a Baker Woods meeting the other night, and somebody, I'm not sure who it was from the town, because there were some other people mentioning about the traffic, and I think they said the meeting was next week. So I think a couple people probably would have joined in. It's not a big deal, but they stressed a couple on Lexington and up near Dean, and then another couple on Baker, and they're, hoping that something also. I tried to bring them up to speed. I told them to go on the website. I told them about the meetings, to try to get involved. And they also voiced a couple different things of what, and it's also very frustrating up on the top of Wyoming when it turns into Schenectady and McClellan, and then the way the road is, the further you go down, I mean, it's just like it's abandoned almost. There's never Schenectady presence with police. The road isn't good. People are running unfortunately. So.
Well, if there are observations that folks on Wyoming and Niskuna have, I'm certainly not above getting those and forwarding those to the Police and Public Safety Committee for the City of Schenectady or the police chief in the City of Schenectady. And I know my experience is the road is a little rougher in terms of potholes and other things, especially if you move further down on Girling, I believe it is. But
well, that will tend to slow cars down the rough road. Like if they pave it, they go even faster.
Yes, Jim Levy on our panel has said the potholes are your friends if you want cars to go slower, and so he would say that. I mean, obviously, we can ask. I mean, if they're speeders, I mean, I know that our town police department said the average speed on Wyoming, I think last was 25, and so certainly it's a connecting road, Wyoming, and so there's cars on it, and there are more cars on it. But they felt like if there was a speed issue on Wyoming, they would prefer to have traffic enforcement pay attention to that as a first step.
So. Yeah, somebody mentioned that to me. There's a woman that lives about 4 houses down, just before on Niskuna side, and she just mentioned about. So you got to remember the speeding. That's one way; it's not being measured the other way. And when they turn off of Baker onto Wyoming and zip up there, they're doing way more than 25. And she was mentioning that. So that's when it gets right where then it gets over to Schenectady. So that's something to remember. The speed is one way and it's towards the end of the road. So everybody's going to slow down a little bit anyways. It includes people that live on the street. I mean, when I pull in, I'm doing probably 2 miles an hour, because I have to stop the turn. But going the other way, it is not manned or not. It is not judged the speed
so
the other way.
So there's a stop sign at Wyoming when you get onto McClellan. your view is that from, say, the midpoint on Wyoming up to McClellan, that cars are picking up speed and going
That's what they
faster.
were mentioning at the Woods meeting, and I've seen it too. They just, I mean, sometimes it's coming this way too, but the big thing is the volume. That is the big thing. And, I know we're doing what we can do, but
We have, I don't know that we have a solution to the volume issue. If we did, people would be recommending it, and I'm sure.
This is like our first step, I think we decided. So let's get the stop signs up. And the reason for the last bullet is because we just like partly, even though the sign is one way, wanted to see so that we have before and after data. I think that was your point. If, adding some more traffic control and more safety would, slow people down and make it seem more residential, which I don't know that that's going to deter cars, but it's the first step. So we can do that
Right.
and then take a look at what the volumes are and if it changes anything. And if it doesn't, yeah. But
okay.
I was going to, I sent it to the interim deputy chief of police and he's adding it to their agenda. So I'm going to try attend on Tuesday. And then hopefully, I think the next step from there is that the town board calls a public hearing on the stop sign if they're okay with it, which just from preliminary discussions, it seemed like they would be. So I'm hopeful that we can move it to their committee and then their committee can move it to the town board.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. And I will again take a look at the traffic study that the police did that they shared with us to see if they have speed data going both way on the street, so that if the electronic sign is there, people see their speed, they may be slowing down coming from McClellan down to Baker on Wyoming. But if they're speeding the other way, I would hope there's some data on that as well that we could see also. Okay. Anything else on Wyoming before we move on to the next item? Anyone?
So, Laura, did you want to vote on this officially for the record for the memo? Because I went back into the notes and I don't think we officially voted. I think everyone was in favor of it, but I don't think we officially.
Right. Well, that's why I put it on, because I wanted to do a formal vote, but I can also just write unanimously. But if you guys do formally vote, that's always more powerful.
Well, we can take a vote today. We, I believe, have a quorum. Tess, are you here? Are you a yes or a no on the stop sign at Baker and Wyoming?
Yes.
On the memo as written.
In the memo, basically the memo with the 6 items recommended on it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I support it.
Paulina Menzo?
Yes.
Okay. William Chapman is a yes. Jim Levy?
Yes.
And Elise?
Yes.
Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members, and all 5 are yes.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Let's move on to the 20-mile-per-hour school zone letter to New York State Department of Transportation. And we discussed this at the last meeting. We discussed this with, was Superintendent Tangora, let me see, was that a Zoom meeting when we discussed that with Superintendent Tangora? Yes, I believe it was. Yeah. He had indicated that he was decidedly not comfortable with a crosswalk on Balltown Road where the average speed is 45 miles an hour at the current time. Kids going across even with the supervision of adult. And we recommended, Laura recommended that, first step here is to try to get a school zone on Balltown Road in front of Craig Elementary. And Superintendent Tangora indicated that he thought that was a good idea. And if the town wanted to pursue that, that he would sign the letter of support on behalf of the school district to ask the state of New York to make that a school zone. And the memo is in our packet. I did have one question, if I may. The memo says, well, let me see. Oh, it's reducing the current 35 to 25 mile an hour speed. We are asking for school zone. It would be 20 miles per hour. Is that correct? Is that the state requirement for school zone speed limit?
From what I read in New York State, it's reducing it 10 miles per hour. So if it's 35, it's down to 25. That was
In other
my
words, the state law is not 20 miles per hour for a school zone? I mean, for all of them?
Jim, you want to weigh in here?
I don't have a lot of experience with installing new speed zones. I was actually just looking it up on DOT's website right now, so I'll refer back to you, Pauline. I don't really have any input.
I think that when the school is like a certain distance away from the road and kids aren't like, there's not a crosswalk there and there's not, the way Craig School is set up, from my understanding, it was reducing it 10 miles per hour.
But it also has the flashing beacons.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that was the category that I looked under, was that the kids, there wasn't like an active population of kids, walking already or biking already. There wasn't an active crosswalk there. The school is set far away from the road, and that we were, so that was the research that I did, but I can double check it. Or if someone else can double check it, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we're just requesting what it looked like the rules would be for it. So she did some research into what the rules were.
Now, Craig Elementary, the property abuts Balltown Road. In other words, it's not a half a block away. The Craig School campus is right on Balltown Road. And we do have some kids, I believe, maybe they all take the bus, but there still may be some even currently that cross to get over to the JCC for childcare after school. And, we do hope to get a school zone. So I don't know whether the town attorney would take a look at what we've done or if it's standard for 20. I mean, if the average speed is 35, we're trying to get to 25, but my hope would be maybe that the state law is 20 miles per hour on a school zone wherever you have them. And if that's it, then we should ask for 20 miles per hour. But again, maybe we could ask the town attorney to look at that before we put it in the letter, or
yeah, we can. The town attorney approved the letter to form. So he's okay with us sending it as written. But we can just double check, and if there is a way that we can wiggle it down to 20 miles per hour, I mean, I'm sure we'd love to.
The Capital District Transportation Committee, would they be able to help us on this? I mean, would they be knowledgeable?
Yeah, we can ask them. I think the important thing to remember is that the actual details in the letter, if we write in the letter we want to go from 35 to 25 and then we have a meeting with them and they're like, well, you can go down to 20. I mean, of course we'll want to go down to 20. The letter isn't going to put in stone what we do. It's the first step to having a meeting with them. And maybe we could just put a little thing, this is according to our research, we believe that it falls into this category. But, if there's a way to even further reduce it, we can. We could add a sentence like that in there.
Okay.
I think the important thing about having the details is it shows that we're, paying attention to what their rules are, and hopefully opens the door to have a meeting. I did call the DOT this morning and make sure that we were sending the letter to the right person, and he said that yes, we definitely are, and that they would meet with us if we did send a joint letter. So I think it's really just to open the door and to prove to them that we're both on board. So we can just double check that threshold, but whatever's written in the letter isn't going to be necessarily, maybe they review it and it's not 0.25 away. It's going to be.
Well, I guess my thought when I saw the 25 was that if we could get 20, we want 20. And then if the state is saying, well, they could get 20, but they're only asking 25 and their average speed is 35 or 40. And so, but I'm happy to do what the state recommends, or, I mean, if you're comfortable of this committee endorsing the letter as we read it right here, I'm fine with that. And, we can take a vote on that right now if you think that
It
makes
says
sense.
the numerical value of a school speed limit should be approximately 10 miles per hour below the normally prevailing 85th percentile speed on the highway, or approximately the 85th percentile speed within the zone during school crossing.
Yeah, that's how they typically set the speed zone, is the 85th percentile.
So I think you could do 20, right? I mean, that's
If that falls under the or.
but
If you give me a minute, or two, I can probably find the 85th percentile. Balltown Road.
I mean,
has
when the traffic is
regularly.
backed up in the morning waiting for the light to change so they can turn left on River Road, then I'm sure the speed is not 35 in front of Craig School. And even sometimes, at the end of the day, if it's backed up, but I'm sure there are other times in the day where the traffic's already gone by to get to GE or the nuclear power labs, and that the average speed, if it's 45 or whatever, that really is the average speed. So,
Yeah, I feel like.
But then I did read elsewhere that it was 10 below the current
Speed
well,
limit.
I
Because the
do
current
want to
speed
add one footnote
is
that
less than 15.
it can't
Like,
our,
that was in my head, that it 10 below the current couldn't be less than 15. Like, that was what stuck in my head.
couldn't be less than 15.
Yeah, it can't be less than 15 miles per hour.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
The speed zone can't be below 15 miles an hour, right?
Right.
So if it was like normally 25, it could be dropped to 15.
But if the speed limit was 20, it could only be dropped to 15.
Right. It
Yeah.
can't be less than 15. Right. But
well, I would note that our current school superintendent is taking a position in early October or late September. He is willing to sign this letter, so I don't think we want to delay too long. I'd like to get our request letter over to him so that our current town supervisor, who is ready to sign, and our current school superintendent is ready to sign. I think we should move on it. And if this is the kind of a detail that can be fixed later, whether it's 25 or 20, I think we should go forward today myself in supporting this letter.
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Let's not hold this up.
Because it's easy
I
enough to just have that meeting with them and be like, so this is what we saw on your website, that we could only go to 25, but we would actually like going to 20. And then they could be like, no, you can't. Or, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, it's just the opening salvo to get the meeting set. It's certainly, as you said, Laura, not anything set in stone. So I think I agree. We move it forward and get it signed and get that meeting set up, and then the details will work themselves out.
Okay. I'm prepared to recommend to the board that we send the draft letter to Mr. Regional Traffic Engineer Mark Sicaldo, and I'll move. Is there a second there anywhere?
I'll sec.
Okay, I think I heard Paulina first.
That was Paulina.
Let's,
Yep.
let's do a little roll call here. Tess Healy, are you a yes or no on this?
Yes.
Paulina Manzo.
Yes.
Bill Chapman is also a yes. Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Elise Corbin?
Yes.
Okay, 5 votes in favor. That's unanimous for the 5 members we have with us today.
Okay. So,
any
and
other
like I
further
said,
discussion?
our attorney has already approved it, as well as the supervisor. So I will email it to the school hopefully before I leave today. If we can end like 5 minutes early, I can do that.
Okay,
And then we'll send it over to the schools, make sure they approve it, and then we can sign it and send it to the DOT. So that'll be awesome. And thank you, Paulina. It was a wonderful letter, I thought.
okay, thank you everyone on that. Let's move on to our next item today, which is complete street connections for school improvements. Jim Levy and Paulina Manzo were able to have a meeting with the school district folks about the recommendations that the Complete Streets Committee had made to the school district. We took a look at each of the 8 school campuses, and we had recommendations on how each of them could be more bike and pedestrian friendly. These are largely asphalt pathways that connect from the streets to the school district, and internal asphalt pathways that would be there. And we recommended those to the school district. And Superintendent Tangora suggested that a subset of Complete Streets folks meet with the architects for the school district. And I guess I would like to ask Paulina or Jim if they would like to update the committee on what transpired at that meeting. Jim or Paulina, you've got the floor.
Well, I was listening, and I was remote, but I was able to hear most of it. And I would just say, I think the outcome was good. I think the school district and the current superintendent are definitely in favor of moving forward with a lot of the ideas that we have. I mean, we'll work in the details eventually. But I do think it was a very positive discussion, and it sounds like we have the momentum to move forward and get a lot of these elements included, or at least discussed, as part of the overall plan for the upgrades to the school district properties as part of the building bond.
Okay. Laura or Paulina, anything to add?
Sorry, we had, is anybody else having trouble hearing Bill? Like, was he going in and out for anybody?
Shall I sit closer to my laptop or?
I already heard the answer to that one.
Did you have anything you wanted to add to the school discussion? I thought it was good.
Yeah, I didn't actually hear what you said, Bill, or what Jim said, but.
Well, why don't you give us your impression of the meeting?
It was great. They were super supportive. They were anxious to move forward. We're going to meet with the architects, the engineers. I think Cosimo was the one that said, let's meet with the town lawyers. And I mean, he's just like, go, go, go. It was like over in 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
And he was like, let's do this. Let's get the plans from the architects and then put them in the same room with Jim and Paulina. So yeah, I had the same impression. I thought it was really good.
He's got a checklist. Okay. He wants everything checked off. So the sooner we can meet with the engineers or the architects, I think it's great. I think he said early August when they have plans in hand, and we'll do a site walkthrough, and it was great. Okay. So
can I ask Laura, should we wait for the school to contact us, or should we contact the architects for the school district to say, we're ready to meet whenever you're ready?
You know what? When I email him the school zone letter, I'll just ask him for an update on the timeline for meeting with the architects.
Okay. That would be super. If I knew how to make the volume higher at my end, I would do it, but I might get lost in outer space, so I'll try to speak a little more loudly. Okay. The next item is our Complete Streets survey, and I did say at the last meeting that we do have some preliminary crosstab tables from the survey, and several people have volunteered to work on the kind of open-ended responses that we got to each question. And folks have sent them to me, so I confess I haven't made any progress on it since our last meeting, and I'm going to be out of town for another week or so. But one of my goals is to start writing some brief narrative around each of the crosstab tables that Jim Levy put together based from the survey and sent to me, and then to look at the narrative responses. I mean, our categorization of the narrative responses, that if we had 25 kind of specific narrative responses, we're going to try to condense those to, maybe 4 or 5, or if they're all relevant, we'd either include them in an appendix or a summary of them that would be along with the crosstab table. So someone reading our report would be able to see not only the data in the crosstab, but would be able to see some of the specific narrative responses that people on the survey had. So, and Jim's had some ideas. I don't know if Jim, if that sounds reasonable to you. And We just need to move along on it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, I kind of, when we started working on this, kind of punted that over to you, Bill, because I was swamped. So I put it on Bill's shoulders.
Okay.
But when you get back into it, let me know, and I'll see if there's a way we can kind of divide and conquer some of that. Things to slow down a little bit for me.
Okay. So we're aware that it's on our list of things that we have to work on, and we're going to get going. Number 3, standard traffic calming measures and requests. Mr. Levy pointed out when we were discussing speed humps that Mordella Drive in Colony had examples. I went over and drove the street a couple times myself, took some pictures, and I've asked in our minutes, asked the other committee members to go and drive it. And I spoke on the phone for a little while with Tess Healy, and we kind of had some thoughts on what we might do with what we've learned about Mordella. And Tess, would you like to share some of your thoughts on the street and what we might do next to help people learn about it?
Sure, I have a lot to report on it. And Jeannie, I typed it up as a summary, which I'll send to everyone. So I don't even know if you need to take notes on it, because everything I'm about to tell you will just be in the summary if you want that for the minute, or whoever's doing the minutes. And so those speed humps are located in the village of Colony, which is different than the town. So that was a learning thing for me. And it's not just on Mordella, but there's a parallel street called Delafield Drive. And then there's also Rappel Drive and Pine Avenue. And again, I'll send out the summary to everyone so you can see the names exactly. And they were installed in the late 90s. And I spoke to Les Decker, who's in head of their highway department. And he's been with the village for so long that his career included having a plow route, and that included the speed hump streets. And he says it's completely not a problem to plow over them as long as you keep your speed to 15 to 20 miles per hour, which is what you should be doing, and keep the plow on float. He was involved with their installation. He's got a fat file of information. He said that we're welcome to go over, look through it. He's going to email me some of their traffic study information about it. I haven't received that yet. But the posted speed limit's always been the same there. That didn't change when they put the humps in. He says the residents are very in favor of it. When they were first put in the late 90s, they had to have 70% sign to be in favor and a public hearing before they went forward with it. The only people who ever complain are the residents who have the hump directly in front of their house. And most of those are, so like I said, there's 4 different streets. Mordella gets the most traffic because it's a cut through, so it has the highest volume of traffic. And he says some vehicles do make a noise when they pass over the humps, and that's what the few people that complain about. I'm not sure if on Cornelius or Nicholas, if there would be that. I doubt that there could be that same level of traffic as there is between a cut through between Route 5 and Sand Creek Road. It just doesn't, even though some people do cut through from Van Antwerp to Union or Balltown, like it just can't be as much as that. And they created the humps themselves. They built molds out of 2x4s and used a DOT template, and then they filled them in and blacktopped over it. They later added those delineators because some vehicles would try to drive so that they didn't have to be on the complete hump, and they would go onto the residents' grass. And so they put the delineators there so they couldn't go on the people's grass. And I think that's it. It was super positive conversation with a lot of material available for us to look at if we want to.
How did the plows do with it? Did they say Tess?
Yeah, they said that it was this fellow I spoke to actually used to drive that plow route, and he said it was no problem at all.
Oh.
And what's the current speed limit there?
25 miles per hour.
25. How do they get 25s?
Yeah.
Oh no, is that all?
Colony.
Yeah, it has 25. Yeah.
And did they say what the maintenance is or how much it costs to install or what, like how frequently they have to go back? And because I noticed in the one picture there, it looks like there's already some damage in the front. Like, do they have to go back and edge that frequently?
I can ask about that. The upkeep. I don't think it was much to do it because they built it themselves, which I don't know if Niskuna is willing to do that. He said that it's over 20 years. They were only completely rebuilt that one time that they did a significant re-blacktopping of the street.
So the core of it is asphalt though, right? Or is the core of it concrete?
My impression was that the core was asphalt, but I can also, that's just me. He said they filled them in, but I didn't ask with what.
Yeah, because you said
look like
2 by
asphalt to me.
forms, and that sounds like concrete, but it seems like it would be hard for that to be concrete.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're asphalt myself based on standing and looking at them on the road.
Yeah,
But
so the inside's asphalt, and then they just pave over the top of them whenever they pave the road.
That's my understanding, but I couldn't ask for clarification.
And then emergency vehicles is the
Okay.
other to think about.
What is their experience with the emergency vehicles, or if we could talk to somebody who drives the emergency vehicles there,
Mm-hmm.
Parents over it, and then
if it slows
issues
them
slowing
down,
them down.
because they don't like to be slowed down.
Right.
So, like, what specs did they use to build this? You know, or these?
DOT.
He said that the DOT has a template and they use that.
Okay.
And then it also includes the spacing of them. Like
So
in that
aside
little
from
summary, I talk about that too.
complaining about the noise and having to keep the cars from driving on people's lawns,
Yeah.
they are happy with them.
Yes. And now the car with the delineators, the driving on the lawns doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
And it's the only people complaining about the noise were on that one street out of 4, and that it was right in front of their house because there's just so many cars going by.
And did I hear Bill said that there are 7 on the street? Is that correct? Or how many are on the street total?
I don't know.
7 between Sand Creek and Central Avenue.
Wow.
The road is 0.6 of a mile between Sand Creek and Central, and there are 7 speed humps on it. And there is also a school, turn into a school. So that block does serve an elementary school.
So do you know, is this an experiment for them? Did they plan it? Do you know if this is an experiment for them? Did they plan it on this street because it's a school street? They're trying to slow traffic down, particularly on this street where there are 7.
I don't think the village of Colony is very big, and it is on 4 streets in the village. So it's not an experiment. It's just wherever they felt like they needed it in the entire village area.
They've been there for years. And if anyone's been over there, it's a couple of those roads, and probably the one that Bill's talking about with 7 of them on it. It's a major cut through between Central Ave and was it Sand Creek at the north end there?
Yes.
It's a straight shot. The road is practically dead straight from one end to the other, and with a ton of traffic.
There's a little curve in it. It's not straight. It's got some curvature, gentle curves on it. So, but it is a connector between Central and Sand Creek.
Yeah, it's a major cut through.
And he said that the DOT told them also about the spacing. So they started right where Mordella intersects Route 5, and they said from the intersection, you put the first one 150 feet in, and then after that, it's every 550 feet. So he is really, really positive and thinks it would be great if we would adopt some too. But yeah, I have it all written up, and I was just editing it a little, and then I can send it out.
So what Tess has recommended was we kind of summarize what we learned from the village of Colony. We get the answers to questions that committee members have presented today. I even said to Tess, I would be happy to walk Mardella, and whoever's home, we just write down the address at the home and just ask the homeowners ourselves what their reaction to having the speed humps, whether they believe they slow traffic, whether they like having them on the road, if they've had issues with noise, or whether the delineators have prevented, so that we learn currently with our own ears what residents have had to say, and we would include that in the report that Tess is going to take the lead on here, so that we have a document that we can share with the town board in the town of Niskayuna, with the chief of police in Niskayuna, with the highway superintendent in Niskayuna, so they can read our report. They'll have the contacts that Tess has spoken with in Colony if they want to speak to those people directly themselves. And I mean, I would say here is a close by example of a community that's used speed humps. And, I mean, thinking about Fieldstone Drive or whatever, I mean, first we want to get the report done, ask them to take a look at the street, drive the street themselves, but then, to think about one or two streets that might be a test for the town of Niskayuna. And to me, I just think it's what we've learned so far is it's good evidence that these work. They don't have the noise, the snow plowing impediment, the emergency vehicle impediment, the cost for construction, any of the things that we might be worried about as making them impediments. And, if Colony has used them for 30 years and they seem to be working, and it's not one street, it's 4 streets. And, if they started out with Mardella, either because it was a cut through or because it had a school on it, I mean, those are both good characteristics that we'd be looking for ourselves. So my hope is we can prepare this report. We can ask people in this room to look at it, and then, lay the ground to maybe asking for a demonstration street in the town of Niskayuna.
That sounds really good. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Anyone else on this? Any other observations, Mr. Levy or Tess? Anything more you want to add?
Nope, I said everything.
Okay. Tess, are you willing to follow up getting answers to other questions that we got today and work on a first draft of a report? And one, we can put the pictures in as we have them. And I'm more than willing to go with you or anyone else that if we want to do Mardella and put together a little 5 or 6 question survey and then talk to some homeowners and see what their answers to them are. And we would add that as an appendix or have a table in our report that we would present. And
I guess I would just say that I don't think, since there are 4 different streets, I think that most streets in Niskayuna would be more similar to Delafield or one of the other ones than Mardella. We don't have a high traffic cut through like that.
Well, the one example where I do think we have a street that's kind of like Mardella is Fieldstone Drive, and then the street that it connects with that goes over to Central. That's what it's becoming a little bit, that from Central over to Console Road. And again, Fieldstone is a fairly kind of open street with, there aren't street trees, so people are going fast. And that is a street that I believe the police department has said we do have a speed issue on that street. And
Yes, they
I can't
did.
quickly give you the connecting road, but I mean, if Colony also had them on Mardella in part because there was a school on that street, I mean, that would be another reason to consider looking at them. And so anyway, Elise, any thoughts on this, or Jim, or Jean Fody, Paulina, anyone before we move on?
Okay, I think sending the report on would be good just to get a sense because, there was initial reception to the speed table, but then when we looked at the cost and how it wasn't really temporary, it's like, so it's good to look at all these things and figure out where we land on them.
Well, I do think if we can learn from Colony on, well, what was the cost or is the cost to do a speed hump, and what is the cost to maintain them, and if creating them the first time was affordable, and they haven't been a maintenance problem for the town of Colony for the last 30 years, then to me that's the answer to that issue. So,
well, I don't know that you could show this without data, but one of the other things that I would just be wondering is if it did slow cars down. I mean, I would assume that it would, but I know like with stop signs and stuff, sometimes the cars just race between the stop signs. And so I would also be interested to see if they have any experience with like cars racing between the speed bumps, or if it really does seem to actually traffic calm.
Yeah, Les has promised to get me some traffic study data.
Oh, they have some. Because, yeah, okay.
and it's possible Colony had some traffic speed data before they put the humps in. I mean, if they do, we could just ask them historically if they had some speed data from 30 years ago before the humps were in to see here's pre and here's post.
He said that they did do that. It's in the file. He's going to find
Okay,
it.
good.
And volume, because you'd think that sometimes people would just be like, oh, I don't want to drive over 7 speed bumps.
Yes, I agree.
That is not a worthy cut through any longer,
Okay.
But then if people live
that's-
on there, have to drive through 7 speed bumps too.
Right.
Well,
So thank
nobody
you.
would have to drive over all 7 because I guess if you live at one end, you're coming from the other, but hardly
Yeah,
anyone.
it would depend on how you're approaching your own house there. It would be interesting.
Mhm.
I know, like, this is off topic, but like my cats, every time I go over railroad tracks, I completely freak out. If I'm taking them to the vet, I like plan a route that has the least amount of like bumps, like people who have surgery and stuff. You're just like, okay, hold on.
Okay, we have moving on Plum Street as number 4 on discussion items and number 1 on Plum Street sidewalk looking for grants. So
Yeah, sorry. I think
what
that
did
was
we
actually supposed to
do
be
to
fall
this?
project. I had moved Plum Street down into reports, and I meant to have that be fall project number 4. Fall project.
Yeah.
Okay, can you I did forward the
I was wondering if you guys
Climate
wanted to do
smart
another
communities,
bike rodeo this year, or if you wanted to do like a demonstration on a road again. I know we talked about that a little bit at the last meeting, because like I'm still very in favor of trying temporary bike lanes on Lexington, because I like the idea of narrowing the road and putting on pavement bike lanes in areas that we can. But also our bike rodeos are really popular. So I didn't know what you guys thought. They seem more popular than our road demonstration.
There's sort of a nice grass patch at the end of Lexington. I know we usually do our bike rodeos on the road, and most people that come with road bikes probably wouldn't be able to do it. But if we were to do both, there is sort of a place at the end of Lexington that you sort of have to make a little left turn and end up almost at Wyoming. But there's a kind of a grassy triangle that has enough room that could conceivably.
Yeah, we did talk about that. That is privately owned, but we might be able
Oh,
to
is it?
get them.
Okay.
Yeah, we might be able to get them to let us use that. That's right. We did talk about that at the last meeting.
Well, I mean, we can always set up, if we're going to do Lexington in the median, right? And we can talk with the town about blocking off parts of the road.
Yeah,
would
and we could even like reach out to the owners of that park and just be like, can we use it for a day too? They might not care. I don't know them. They might care. I'm not sure.
well, it might be good to use the median or maybe that triangle so that if it's a demonstration project, we have tables that we have information and other things. We got a spot that would be next to where we're doing the demonstration project. And so, maybe the one that Elise is referring to that's on Wyoming, or, using a portion of the median would be good. Laura, can I ask, are you thinking about the bike path? Would it be next to the green median? I mean,
No, I think the right lane.
next, or would be on the opposite side?
I think the right lane on street bike path, the right side of the lane, is much more user friendly, unless you have to put it in the middle, like we were considering for Grand Boulevard, because of like the way that the city of Schenectady was struggling with the school parking area, and because of like the weird angles on Grand Boulevard. But I think generally speaking, no matter what, it's almost always safer and better on the right side of the lane.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else has an opinion on that.
Would this be on both sides of Lex? In other words, from Balltown down to Dorwalt or wherever? And
yeah, I mean, I don't think Lexington is quite as wide as Grand, but it's pretty close.
It is, yeah.
And like,
Yeah, it's not.
pretty close.
It's
not as wide
but
as Grand.
pretty wide.
It's
I
not
think
as wide as Grand.
It's not as wide as Grand, but it's still pretty wide. I think you could easily put, like a stripe bike path on the one side, and then still have plenty of driving lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's utilized a lot.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
always
definitely.
people running, biking,
I was on it today.
strollers.
Yeah.
I think it would be a nice place to do that.
I mean, I think the coolest thing to do would be to do that big wide stripe with delineators every once in a while, because then it visually narrows it and separates the on-street bike path but I'm sure plows hate those delineators. I wonder if we could do like summertime delineators.
Let me ask, do we envision a day where we will have bike paths in Niskayuna, or do we have generally quiet roads that don't have sidewalks that most people on the streets in Niskayuna, we'd have the image of a bike like we did on Orchard Park Drive, that's a street where there will be pedestrians and bikers, and those would be a message to motorists to expect pedestrians and bikers. And I mean, as a committee, do we envision bike lanes at some point in Niskayuna, so that doing a demonstration project would be a step to some more bike lanes in our town?
I think the only place we really need them are the streets that aren't under our jurisdiction, like Balltown and some of the bigger ones. But images of bikes are great for smaller roads, like the ones that we have power over, like Lexington and Grand.
We don't have power over Grand, and Grand desperately needs a bike lane.
Okay.
And so one of the reasons it might
I always found that
be
Lexington and Grand are very similar, right?
Yeah, they are very similar. We have power over Lexington, and so even if
That makes
Lexington
sense.
may be small enough that it doesn't necessarily need a delineation, I don't know that it ever actually hurts to have a delineation. And if it's successful on Lexington and everybody in the world is like, this is the greatest infrastructure the town ever put in, it might be some leverage to get it on Grand, because the county doesn't want it to be a test case on Grand. They don't like being the test case. They even said, like with Dean Street, like they don't want to put chicanes in on Dean Street. They're like, if the town puts them all on region and everybody's happy, which, maybe that's not true because we tried that, but yeah, so they don't want to be the test case. And the only other road we have that's the closest is Lexington.
So if we make that our demo day and they see it's successful, then they could potentially put that in.
Yeah, or we have to
just
put it
leave
in
it up.
permanently. If we put it in permanently and it doesn't ever cause any problems and people are really happy with it. Yeah.
So even if we used paint and chalk and it just stayed up for weeks and weeks.
I mean, that's definitely has happened, like in places. I know that people have liked the demonstration so much that they left it. And we talked about this before. I know we sometimes talk about stuff over and over again. Sorry, but I think they have some of these in Water Elite, right? They have the on-street bike lanes that they just put in recently.
Yes.
They
And they're nice.
put them in 2, maybe 3 years ago. There are a couple delineators where they have effectively bump outs, but mostly it's just a painted buffer along
It's
the
just a
bike
painted
lane.
buffer on their road, and they're more urban than we are. But
Yes.
there's a couple case
Yeah.
studies we can point to that have worked.
Because even if we
I guess
did bare minimum
the
without
With the the
without the
delineators are probably a
delineators.
tough sell. I like them though because I think they make people feel safer.
yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things to consider if we're going to do a demo project is just how far we're going to go with this in terms of, you know, our ability to paint straight lines and hash marks and everything else. I just did one demo project up in Ballston Spa, and we did a 1 block section with we had to stripe out the existing parking lane and the bike lane, and it took 4 of us about 3 hours to do 1 block between painting on the symbols, and then we actually used tape for the lines, which worked pretty well, but it did end up getting torn up. I think it was a much busier road than we're talking about with Lex, but if big trucks and things drive over it, it does have a tendency to come up. But it's, you know, it's work to put it down. So I mean, we were originally talking about a couple blocks. I mean, that's going to require a pretty good army of people and a whole lot of tape or paint and a lot, you know, and several hours to put all that stuff down. So just want to consider what our limitations are in terms of, you know, physical labor to get this stuff done.
Well, one,
We had a line striper, but it was really hard for us to do. Remember we line striped Dexter, Jim?
We did. Yep. And
it
we did
was
the same thing.
a really
at Town
thin
Hall.
line, and it wasn't very straight.
The tape we used actually worked really well. CDTC actually had recommended it, and we used it, and it actually came out relatively straight. Actually went out and marked off, you know, where the tape should go, like every 15 feet, so that we had a marker. And we just unrolled these lines of duct tape, really super sticky duct tape. Getting it up was annoying, really messy, but it worked well. But again, it you know, just using duct tape and spraying 4 sharrows on the road was 3+ hours for 5 of us.
For 1 block.
For a 1 block section. Yeah. But now we had to do, you know, we had to tape off the parking area and then do another tape line for the bike lane and then do 4 sharrows. Well, actually we did 4 sharrows and 2 bike symbols in the bike lane. So we actually sprayed 6 bike symbols and then put down a couple 100 yards of tape. But it takes time to try and get it straight. And even when we were done, if you take a look at the picture, if you look from a distance, it looks really good, but it wasn't perfect. And we had a few people like, well, I don't want this to happen if it's not a straight line. So it all depends on who your neighbors are. But it's, you know, again, I just want to be honest and realistic about our, you know, how much time it takes to do some of this stuff. You know, if we're talking 4 or 5 blocks, you know, even from Balltown to Dean and back on both sides of the road with a bike lane, we're going to need a couple people. You know, we're going to need a number of people to do that. It just takes a while, you know, and it, you know, that's all. Even Dexter, I think, took us several hours to set up when we did that. But I love the idea. And I think,
So,
honestly,
would we do the bike lane in addition to the bike rodeo in the park?
Yeah. I mean, we usually, what we've done when we've done the bike rodeos is we've had a rodeo central area that has like little booths and ice cream and stuff like that. And then we've had like a bike. We've had the police take them down, like, and Town Hall. It was the one where every 20 minutes they would go down east, and then we had the sharrows that are still there on Morrow, or is it Morrow? What is it? Whatever that one is.
The one.
Orchard Park. Yes, Orchard Park. And then they came back. And then at Dexter, they went down Dexter, and then they did a little thing and came back.
Yeah, I think
Right,
So we could set up like the weekend before, or
Yeah,
like we could plan a few weekends ahead of time
to do the thing.
to do.
Yeah.
And then have the bike rodeo.
if, you know, if we can get, you know, part of Lexington,
or
if
we
we can
could,
get part of
you know,
Lexington blocked
like
off, I think we can
multiple
set it up right in the road.
Idea.
I was
tape.
wondering.
I've never tried the tape.
Yeah,
Plus, we'll
I
have the
wouldn't want to-
median as a guide, Jim, so we could use, you know, measure out whatever 5 feet or 6 feet from the median and make a mark, and then use the tape. You know, make a mark every 5 feet, and then use the tape to lay down that would help make it at least look straight because it'll be parallel to the median. You know what I mean? We could at least try it.
Yeah, so that's what. So that's what I did. I went with a tape measure, and I measured from the curb out to the edge, 5 feet, and then I put a small piece of tape down. Did that for the entire block on both. Well, I did it for the parking area, then measured out the bike lane that we did. Did that on both sides of the road, and then we went back and rolled out the tape over those little marks so that we had something to use as a measure. And the tape held up pretty well. We had it down for about a week, and it poured, and it was a busy road. It's a very busy road in Ballston Spa that has a lot of truck traffic. I think that's why the tape came up. It did go down easier, and I think a bit straighter than if we were to paint those lines, but and it's cheaper. It's the tape for one block for all that tape was, I think, $150. If we were to use that with chalk paint, it would be a lot more than that. The chalk paint's really expensive. But
What road was it involved?
what's that?
What road?
It was Hyde Boulevard. It's on the very east side of the village. It's a major cut through between East High and the Northern Road there.
Would the highway
I could send a
department
couple
know?
pictures, but
We could ask them. They don't really have striping capabilities though. Like we don't stripe. Like we pay stripers to come in and stripe. Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
and that's what they did.
They
in
gave us
Waterville.
a field striper because that's the only thing we have.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what that
Yeah, it's to lay down stripes on like a soccer field.
Oh.
That's the extent
the
of our
spray.
striping ability at the town.
Hmm.
We hire everybody else, anybody else for all the other striping.
So how ambitious would we want to be? And I don't think we would want people turning around on Balltown. I mean, if we did both sides of the street, we'd want to go maybe Clifton Park Road, down a few streets on one side and then turn around and come back on the other so that the bike lane would end at Clifton Park and then maybe, I don't know, Dean or Keys or something like that, make a loop around. And maybe at the end of the loop, we'd be in the grassy area where we'd have our either refreshments or information tables or whatever. And I don't know if we'd want to do a mini obstacle course or like when we did Dexter, we actually had a riding loop, which was we could do a loop kind of around the park or maybe down to Dean Street Park and back or something for bikers. But I don't think if we paint that we want any kind of a residue ugliness on Lexington Boulevard because people have nice homes, they take care of their yards. We wouldn't want the street to look tacky afterwards. It would have a not happy effect, I think. And I guess I'm almost wondering if Jim could just on the computer do a computer simulation of a bike path on the right side of either side of the street so that when we talk to police and public safety or the town board and the residents, if we ask them, would you be okay with a temporary bike lane on your street that looked like this? And if it took the paint, I don't know, 3 months or 2 months to wear off, would they be okay with that so that we know that the town board and the police and public safety committee, as well as the residents on either side of the street, are okay doing it as a demonstration project? I mean, that's just a thought I would offer to the committee.
Yeah, I like that idea, but Jim has to also like that idea.
I can do a mock-up pretty easily. That's not a problem. I live right here, so I can walk right up there and take some pictures.
Well, I guess we'd have to decide if we walk Lexington and half of the residents don't like the idea, even if it's temporary. I mean, I don't want to be Debbie Downer on things, but I want to anticipate. I mean, we had some folks on Regent that didn't like our idea, and so we resolved that we were going to be better in touch with the residents of the street that we were going to work on to make sure they were okay with it before we did
Right.
it.
My thought is if 50% of them don't want it there, we probably shouldn't do it. But if it's only like 10% that don't want it there, it's temporary, then I think we should try it.
Yeah, well, what's our time frame on this? Because it's already July 30th. So,
Yeah.
and then, with Delta cases on the rise, like we gotta plan this pretty quick.
Or if yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take long. I mean, like I say, it doesn't take long to set these things up. Once we know what we want to do and decide if we want to close any roads, it's just a matter of buying some supplies. And if we're not using chalk paint, it's probably easier to get the supplies. I find the chalk paint is really hard to come by, but we can talk about all that. That's a detail. But it wouldn't take us that long to set it up. It's more talking to the neighbors, getting approval from the necessary departments at town hall, and advertising it. But I mean, we can have all the supplies and everything ready to go in 4 or 5 days.
Well,
I mean, I can buy them today and have them, by Monday.
I mean, the actual rodeo itself, isn't there? Don't we need to coordinate that with other people?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty heavy lift. It would be easier
Yes.
if we just did a demonstration project of the lanes. If we were time crunched, getting all the vendors, getting the bike fix-it stations, getting the
Like that's a September.
like getting the CDTC to bring their bus,
Right.
which is all really cool. That definitely took us a couple months. Yeah,
Yeah. So that we're looking at September. At
it's
least.
September, at least September, October. Yeah,
Right.
I think it would definitely have to be a fall event for sure.
Which I'm fine with. I'm just curious. Like we don't really know what's going to happen
Yeah,
right now with Delta.
Correct.
So
I mean,
are we gonna
Neighbors really do like.
Are
that
we
right
gonna
now,
They
right?
do like
are
the
we
bike rodeo.
we could just go for it and schedule it and see what's going to happen, and then just have the bike lane on Lexington. as
Would we
well.
be able to require
Actually,
masks?
I do think we need to start with a mock-up and decide what streets. In other words, if we go from Clifton Park Road, I mean, would we go down to Dean, which is 3 streets, and then come back 3 streets on one side and 3 on the other? Or would
maybe
we go
do
all the
some
way to Dorwalt and then come back a little bit longer? So we need to look at what streets we want to use, and kind of where there's a good place at the other end, either the green space past Dean, or a green space near Dorwalt, Lexington, where we'd want to set up. And then we'd have to get the mock up and really kind of go to the town board, go to police and public safety or highway, show them what we want to do, make sure they're okay with that. Then we'd have to have some folks, and I'd be happy to be one of them, to go speak to the residents on both sides of the street, show them the mock-up, get their knowledge, and hopefully they're okay to do it. And then we'd set up and start thinking about paint and that sort of thing. I mean, that's my thought on it.
I guess what I would suggest is, if we want to do this, we had talked previously about doing kind of a self-guided demo project. I think the best way to do this, given where everything is to assume we're going to set this up as a demonstration project, and plan on having a table out there, an info table with things that we can do as the Complete Streets Committee, on a certain date. And then once that's done, we can always build from there. We can ask CDTA if they can send a bus. If they can, fine. We'll just kind of plan. We'll put it over here in the grass on the median and in the boulevard. If we can get, the Niskayuna, the high school cycling team out there, or we can get Cycle Schenectady or whatever it is there, we can do all that. But if we plan just for kind of the basic, and then any add-ons are kind of add-ons that aren't planned, that aren't, necessary or guaranteed, then it's, I think it's an easier lift if we do it as a demo project, and then maybe just try and do some additional add-ons.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. That seems like a little bit easier lift for me. Like the helmet giveaways and stuff, like they do take up budget, and I'll have to use a decent amount, I think, to buy paint or tape or whatever. So starting with like maybe less, and then building on as if it looks like we can, or people will start volunteering things.
So I can do a mock-up. I'm happy to do that, and I'll do that pretty quickly. And then I can, I'll rough out what the distance is, and I can tell you what the costs were for the tape that we bought. And then we actually ended up using paint that was very similar to what Bill bought last time. It's semi-permanent paint.
Chalky finish.
It was marking tape, because that's what they wanted us to use. And the marking tape is much less expensive than the chalk tape, but it does stick around for a while. So we have to decide what we want to do. But I can put together some cost estimates and a mock-up and have all that done. Probably sometime next week. I can do that in a couple days.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
At least it gives us something to start looking at and talk from, and then we can go from there.
So Jim,
Yeah.
could you look at whether we want to do a turnaround at Dean, because there's a moderate amount of traffic on Dean? Would we want to go a little further to Dorwalt to turn around, or
That's an awful lot of taper paint for
Okay.
volunteers to put down. In my opinion, that's a lot of work.
Well then, okay, Clifton Park to Dean would be my suggestion. 3 blocks and it'd be on either side. So
even that is a ton of work. Like, I mean, any time I've been marking up the roads, like just 2 or 3 blocks in one direction is a lot. And
well, the high school bike club might be willing to help us with that. There may be some labor
Bill,
power.
I want to talk, please. For the previous events, like the one on Dexter, Jeff and I put an incredible amount of work into planning it, and I'm not volunteering to be the lead and for this upcoming one. So I'm with Jim to keep it as simple as possible. I don't know, unless somebody else wants to step in. And Elise's mom, who did the previous one at the town hall, I know she also put it. It's like if you do everything, it's a ton of work to plan it all out. And my family's very involved with the high school mountain biking team, so they want to help out, but they also have a lot going on. You can't just depend on them for guaranteed volunteer labor, especially if there's something else that's conflicting with that day. So it's just, personally, I'd rather focus our resources on actual long-term complete streets projects. I mean, I understand that this kind of builds maybe some public support for it, but I also think probably a lot of people that come to them are already supportive. So I don't know, just to keep it simple is what I support.
Yeah, I like the idea of seeing what the people on Lexington would want, and if they do, majority of them do really like the lane, then making the process take longer, but get it through highway and police and whatever, and have them all be okay, and then using a little bit more permanent. I mean, not permanent, we're talking 3 months, but so we don't have to worry about going out and taking it back up.
Right.
We'll put it down. If people are generally speaking like it, let people live with it for, a month, a couple months. And then when it starts to fade, people are like, hey, can you put it back for real?
Right.
That'd be cool. And if it fades and everybody's like, whew, boy, we're glad that's gone. But that's a lot easier than us running out in the rain and picking up tires or planning all the vendors and stuff. Because I know I'm maxed out, and you guys do a ton all the time. I'm totally fine with just doing the work to see if the street wants it, doing the work to make sure that everybody is on board with it going in, and then leaving it up for a little bit longer.
Especially then if it garners support for
Yeah.
Grand Boulevard and
Yeah.
other places, which
Yeah.
is, also part of the intent.
Right.
So sounds good. Sounds like an initial plan at least.
Okay, so we'll wait for your thoughts and mock up, Jim.
Yep, I'll get something on paper, at least for us to look at and start talking about.
And it's okay.
I do
Honestly,
take
it's okay if you
Tess's,
don't do anything this year. We've done a lot.
comment to heart that we'll all have to put some work into it, because Tess and her husband did a lot of work on the Dexter Avenue one, and her children, and Elisa's mother and Lisa and her father also did a lot of work on as we all did really, on the bike rodeo at Town Hall. So I guess once we start down this road, assuming that the town board and highway committee and police are okay and the residents are okay, we still have the marking work to do and the rest of it. So it's
I know, but Bill, we're saying it wouldn't be a festival. It wouldn't.
no
be
festival. I understand, but I think people are saying just marking even 3 blocks of road on
Is a
both
lot.
sides
Yeah.
is not nothing. And then if we put the bike images down, we'll get the stencils. And I mean, they went pretty well on Orchard Park. I like doing it, and so those could definitely go pretty quick, I think. But I'm just think Tess is serious about her point, and I think we all need to hear it. So anyway, okay.
No, like I said, I think we plan it as a demo project, and if we can add to it, that's fine. I have some thoughts on some ways I think we can beef it up a little, but I think we just kind of manage expectations. And if it's a little bigger and better than we originally planned, that's fine. And, if we do this and it's just too much to pull off before the snow flies, then we have it set and ready to go for the spring too. I mean, that's not the end of the world.
Okay.
And I think a really critical thing would be to see how Lexington people feel about it before we put it down. Like, even that is just huge. Like, even if we just
Absolutely.
accomplish that this fall, do outreach and letters and get some feedback from Lexington, is really a good thing, just to hear what people think
Yes.
about.
I mean, I live up here and I think I know what we'll hear, but I'll be really interested to see what it actually is, to see if my thoughts are matching up with what I think they'll be. Because I don't know. We'll see.
Do you think people would want it or not want it?
I think so. I know there are a ton of people that walk up here on Lexington, and the volumes aren't really high, but the speeds sometimes really are, and people get really upset about that. That putting some tape or something down will narrow the road, and I think help slow speeds a little, and at least provide people with that idea. But it'll be interesting to see what the actual response is, whether or not what I think will happen based on what I see is the same as what people will say, quote unquote, officially, and that's where it matters. That's why it's good to get that. So
I always everybody will love everything.
I
yes,
think
we've been here before. We'll see where
even if we just talk
We're
to
not the right
residents
person to decide.
and they end up saying, no, we're still doing a community reach out. So it's
Yeah,
still-
and that's good feedback for
Right.
us too. I find all of that to be
Absolutely.
really valuable.
Absolutely.
okay.
Okay.
Finally, Crescent Road and Clifton Park Road. Anything you want to speak on that topic, Laura?
I don't really have updates on that. I have reached out to the county a couple times to try and get timelines for their project, and I still don't have any timelines for their project. And just based on that, I really have still got to do the work that we discussed before. So I'm not going to lose it. It's just without knowing their timeline and with all the other things going on, I'll just keep putting it on the agenda until I finally have something for it.
And I finally have one more
That's all
thought.
Ronnie can do.
Troy Road is a long stretch from Upper Union all the way to Rosendale Road at the end. And we have sidewalks on there. Is it possible for the town to designate those sidewalks as a multi-use path? Because on her pamphlet, Laura is saying, don't ride on the sidewalk. So we're telling bike folks, it's a baddie to ride your bike on the sidewalk. And I guess I'm wondering, what is the solution? I mean, is it possible for the town to designate it a multi-use path so it's not illegal or immoral to ride on a sidewalk? Or would we want to approach the state of New York to ask them to put 3 more feet of sidewalk on the side of the 5 feet sidewalk they already have and then call it a multi-use path? Because Troy Road is just too crazy and too fast to ride your bike out with the traffic, at least I think. And you've got a sidewalk that has fairly few pedestrians. I almost see it as we have a Mordella Road, looking at that as a project. But what have other communities done in terms of being able to use a sidewalk on a busy road as a way for bikes as well as pedestrians? And I'm just wondering about that.
So
If
Bill,
anyone
could
has
we
a
end the
thought.
meeting with a question? And
Yes.
then that could be something that we research and get back to you at the next meeting.
Yes. And also, I'd like to end by saying Paulina has done a lot of work on the sign and the pamphlet and other things. And so I've given her, a couple pamphlets to look at. And so I don't want to go on over, but I'd like people to look at the input that Paulina has provided. And if you have some more comments, on the traffic calming things, if you're confused or you'd like another sentence on them, or we need to work on finding another example in the Capital District, or I'm just saying, it says don't ride your bike on the sidewalk, but I see people on Troy Road riding their bikes on the sidewalk, and so I'd like to have an answer to that before we do something. So please look at the things that Pauline has prepared, and if you got some comments, I'll get back to her on those.
I think
Okay.
I
Not everybody's edits. I just haven't had time to incorporate them. So thank you, everybody who sent me feedback. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Unless someone else has another, I move that we adjourn the very successful July 30, 2021 Complete Streets meeting, and I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and all in favor of adjourning. And I hope you have a great July and August, and look forward to seeing you all in August. And we'll do more work on the projects we've assigned ourselves, in particular, learning about whether we can do Lexington Parkway. So thank you all for coming today.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks. Like,
I really like them just the way they are, Paulina.